Greetings from Cybertron. This is SoundJack here with another episode of SoundJack's Rambles. And today I am joined by Potter. Say hi, Potter.
Oh, sorry. Hi.
It's all good. And today we are going to be talking about the latest Marvel movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Yes, this is a relatively recent movie. This is coming out a little later than I would normally put out a podcast for a new movie. Sorry about that. Yeah, we're talking about it, so just definitely be aware, spoilers ahead. But before we get into it, Potter, how much did you know about Ant-Man and the Wasp before seeing this movie, besides seeing the previous Ant-Man solo movie?
Yeah, and to be clear, seeing the previous Ant-Man, and again, spoilers, because the first 5 minutes of the movie explains all you need to know for the whole plot of the second movie, you don't really have to have had seen the first Ant-Man in order to see the second.
No, not at all.
And I think Marvel did that on purpose, which we'll go into later of wanting a movie of levity. But all I knew was it took place. It explained where was Ant-Man. That was part of the marketing campaign. Where was Ant-Man during the events of Infinity War? And that's all I know. That's all I knew. How about you?
Pretty much the same for me. I definitely saw the first Ant-Man movie. Definitely enjoyed it. Definitely thought it was a fun time. Had no other context besides what appearances Ant-Man and Hope, who has become the Wasp in this movie. Just all I know is what previous fiction there was of them in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Not familiar with their comic book stories or whatnot, or TV show stuff or whatever. Just the movie stuff. That's all I was familiar of. But gonna say, quick thoughts and opinions before we really get into spoiler territory. I think this was a very good movie. Considering Marvel has a very good track record of having very good movies, this may not necessarily be at the top of my personal list, but it was a fun time. It was a good fun time, especially after everything that happened in Infinity War. How about you, Potter? What do you think of the movie, really quickly?
Yeah, it was as I was saying before, it was a levity that was necessary.
Yeah.
And I think that's why they made it such a summary in the beginning. It wasn't necessary for the diehard fans, but it really brought it together for the fans, and it also for the people who are like, yeah, sure, I'll go see this with you. Or, I don't know, even more importantly for Marvel, I don't know, that last superhero movie was really dark. I'm not sure I want to go see it. So they're giving, it is a deep sigh of relief until the post-credit scene for everyone, and that levity, which it's supposed to be, until Captain Marvel, and then Captain Marvel will go into Avengers.
Yep.
Now, if I may, Little.
Yes.
Where that stops making sense is the post-credit scene. Because the post-credit scene, which, spoilers ahead, are we good?
Yeah, let's just go right into spoiler territory right now.
Awesome. When everyone fucking evaporates,
Watch the swears.
Original Ant-Man, original Wasp, the new Wasp, and Ant-Man's left in the quantum zone, all that levity that, you let your guard down and suddenly you get gut punched.
Yep.
And it's incredible. Now, I'm wondering if, in order to understand Infinity War sequel, well, not really sequel, but
yeah,
you will need to have watched Ant-Man 2. And part of this is because of, well, that's the end stuff. We don't have to get into the end stuff if you don't want to yet.
No, we can do that since let's just get the whole talking about it in the context of the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe out of the way first before going into the rest, to the movie itself.
In terms of the context of the Marvel Universe, it's a deep breath. All you really need to see is the post-credit scene in order to stay canon. Or, sorry, not canon, up to date with what's going on in the world. Mm-hmm. Because where Ant-Man is at the end of the post-credit scene and what happens to him is probably going to be directly relevant to Avengers 4.
Yes. Because from my understanding, the whole speculation about Avengers 4 is it's going to be a huge time travel movie going back to like famous moments and seeing characters from the Marvel Cinematic Universe in other films or other times before, possibly even future on. And with the whole Ant-Man, and the reason Ant-Man being shrunken down so small as he is kind of important to that, is because before he goes down, Hank Pym makes an offhanded comment of "Don't get sucked into a time vortex."
No, that was Michelle Pfeiffer.
Oh, that was Michelle? Okay. I thought that was Hank Pym. Okay.
No. I
did misremember that, but yeah. Anyway, that comment was made to him, and he's stuck down there since everyone up top has been deadified. So, but we do know he is. I'm pretty sure they have already confirmed he will be in the Avengers 4. So, someone's going to find him and pull him out of there or something.
I got you.
But that's all speculation. But yeah, that's the main connection, and also, like you had said before, Potter, how just following up on the comment about him being under house arrest during Infinity War.
Some comments about him being under house arrest. So I thought they did it beautifully. Is that very awkward FBI director guy who explained it like a child, even though it wasn't really like a child, to his daughter of, well, you know how you get in trouble for drawing the walls? Well, your daddy got in trouble for drawing the walls all over Germany with Captain America. And, you know, part of the deal of Germany United Nations is that he be under house arrest. And Hawkeye was also under house arrest for 2 years, which explains that 2-year gap between Civil War and Infinity War.
Yep.
And, you know, and it also brings to mind the fact that it's been 2 years, and any contact with the outs, you know, anyone, the Avengers, Van Dyne, Hank Pym, all of those people would be, he would be thrown in jail for at least 20 years. And the whole motivation for him getting through those 2 years of house arrest is his daughter.
Yep.
I think that they did it beautifully. I think it was a great explanation. I'm going to be very interested to see Hawkeye, because Hawkeye is, I imagine, going to be a pivotal part. So we'll see. Yes.
Oh, yes. Because he'll be back. He's also got similar family carings that will likely either inspire him or inspire him to be involved, or make Infinity War difficult. The Avengers 4 difficult for him.
Well, it's interesting because he, I'm sure part of his probation is not dealing with any of them. But now that half the universe has disappeared, I don't think it's going to be much of an issue anymore. I think civilization has broken down. I think that with the second Ant-Man scene, the one with the ant drumming, and we see that the TV is on that colored, you know, like no signal screen. Yeah. We see that. Maybe that's just temporary. Maybe I'm exaggerating what you've seen and taken and running with it. But I think that everything has fallen apart. And I think people are running around crazy. People probably don't recognize government very much right now. Riots in the streets, everything is how I imagine the world after this occurs. Now, with with Scott Lang and his implications of being in the quantum zone, Tom Holland let slip that, and I don't know whether he actually let slip this or if Disney told him to let slip this, but I'm going to guess that he actually let slip that he had to memorize words and scientific terms like the quantum zone. That's just, it makes it even more obvious that he's going to go into one of those time vortexes that you were talking about, that Michelle Pfeiffer talked about.
Yep.
And he's going to go back in time. But here's the problem. He has no idea what happened. He has no idea about Thanos. He has no idea about anything. So how is he going to stop anything and go back in time and do anything if he doesn't even know what happened in the first place?
Very true.
So I don't know. Maybe he'll go back a little bit and then a little bit more and a little bit more. And how does he change size? And all of these questions. You know, he came back from the quantum zone once by himself. So maybe he has that capability. But then if he had that capability, wouldn't he just come back immediately? So there are a lot of questions that still, you know, need to be answered, need to be figured out.
I think there's an explanation in the movie for why he can't come back out by himself. Because in the first movie, he went into the quantum realm in the first place because he deactivated his regulator, which allowed him to shrink further than the suit would allow him. In the second, in Ant-Man and the Wasp, there was a comment that the newer models lack the regulator. So it's possible the new suit, that Hank's wearing the new suit.
You mean Scott?
Yeah, Scott. I mean, Scott's wearing the new suit, so he can't deactivate the regulator, so he can't grow back to his full proper size.
Interesting. So why did he get rid of the regulator, I wonder?
I think just advancement in technology. That was just more efficient. They brought it up because it was brought up because Bill Foster was saying you could track this energy signature of the lab using by doing something to the regulator, and then Hank dropped the line of like, "Oh, I got rid of the regulators in the new version." And then we had to go to the school because Scott decided to keep the old version and just shrunk it down to the bottom of the trophy his daughter gave him.
That was cute. That was the one part that I think probably wasn't necessary in this movie. I'm not saying that it should have been removed. I'm just saying it's probably the least necessary is when they went to the school.
Yes.
It was funny.
Yes.
It just wasn't necessary at all.
Yeah.
They could have just said, "Oh, it's at school," and saw them running away, and that could have been it. But there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all it needed to be. But you know, it was a fun moment. Just having fun with the crazy sci-fi tech.
Yeah.
But let's get more into the actual depth of the movie since we've been mostly talking around it.
Sure.
So, start of the movie, we do have a flashback to the incident where Wasp, the original Wasp, who was called Janet Van Dyne, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, was lost into the quantum realm. And then Ant-Man, and then I think we started with the flashback, right?
Yeah, we started with a flashback. It was basically, and I just saw this a few days ago again, so it's fresh in my mind. Last night. Sorry, I saw it last night again.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, my bad. It's Hank Pym telling Van Dyne, his daughter, that how his mother actually died, because I don't think that she was fully aware of what her father did.
Yeah.
In the first movie until like 2/3 through the movie.
Yeah. That's right. I remember now because we actually saw the scene of Hank and Janet going on to that adventure and then replaying the scene of them getting lost. Of her getting lost in the quantum realm, and then him coming back and saying, "I'm sorry, she's not coming back."
I got you.
Yeah, so that's what happened there. And then we're taken to Scott Lang's place where he's crawling around with his daughter in a giant cardboard thing that makes it look like it's an ant tunnel, pretending that they have shrunk. Uh, because his daughter's aware that he is the, well, of course, she knows he's the Ant-Man because she saw him doing the fighting in the last movie. I forgot about that. Anyway, so they're playing pretend. Um, his one buddy from the first movie, who is the founder of Ex-Con Security,
Yeah.
is talking about him about like plans for some big project they have to get right or something. And Scott Lang's like, yeah, that's going to work like that. No, it's going to work like that. And then something. The plane goes down to now they're riding down a giant cardboard slide, which looks like a lot of fun, to be honest.
It does.
Yeah, that scene looked like a lot of fun. And then they land in the yard, and then unfortunately, when they're sliding down, his Scott's foot goes through the fence. His ankle monitor goes to the fence. He's counted as being outside the house area. So government officials have to come, search his place, make sure he's fine, and then it's revealed he's got 3 days left until his house arrest is over, before his 3-year parole. Then his daughter leaves with his mother and the mother's boyfriend. Then he goes to have a bath, and he has a very weird dream.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about that dream?
So Michelle Pfeiffer is we see the scene where it's Scott looking through the eyes of Michelle Pfeiffer's, and again this is the old Wasp character, of finding a little girl in a red closet, and then he wakes up and he freaks out like, whoa, that was a weird dream, and then he calls Hank and leaves a message for this old phone, and then gets his ass kidnapped by Van Dyne and taken back to the lab with the idea of, oh, hey, you're we opened the portal for like half a second, but 5 minutes later, then you called us. So this must mean something. And I like how they introduce this villain. They then go and get this extra part to open the gate to the quantum realm, where Michelle Pfeiffer is. She's been stuck for 30 years, which, by the way, let's talk about that later.
Yes.
But anyway, gets the part, even though they have to fight the ghost person,
mm-hmm.
which they don't know who it is at the time, and this new villain. So that we get introduced to 2 new villains at once from opposite ends. So this is a 3-way battle. And, you have multiple people with multiple different objectives.
Yes.
Which all make it really interesting.
Yes.
And Marvel has gotten a lot better with villains. And I thought that Ghost was a good villain.
Mm.
In the way that, you have the gun dealer bad guy. Yeah. That guy can show up in any fake James Bond movie, and there you go. Although I love the actor. The actor's great. Yes,
the actor is great, and his thinking he understands what's going on, just being so cocksure about that is quite good.
And suddenly someone walks through walls, and he's like, "Okay, this is out of my league."
Yep.
But he has this Marvel's villain problem is that they always pick villains that know what they're doing is wrong. And recently, with the Vulture, with who was the villain in
Killmonger.
Killmonger, thank you. That they're villains and Thanos is a prime example. All villains who think they're doing the right thing, that they're completely justified in what they're doing.
Yes.
And it's so interesting. So Ghost feels that she's justified doing this. She's lived in nothing but pain for 20 years?
Something like that.
Now she has this one opportunity to be free of this constant agony. And it's driving her to this place where she's willing to kill someone.
But to be fair, that's also what she was grown up on believing, because she okay, for a little backstory, in case for whatever reason you didn't decide to watch this before watching the film. Um, she was the daughter of one of Hank Pym's former colleagues, who also who had attempted to do an experiment to get into the quantum realm himself. It did not work. Uh, he died along with his wife, but his daughter, who grew up to be Ghost, survived, though she wasn't there completely. She was
It was like half in the quantum zone, half in the real world, or not like half and half, but like somewhere.
The explanation they utilize in the film for a bunch of things is quantum entanglement.
Yeah.
Which is real scientific jargon for theories about how teleportation, how like teleporters in Star Trek could work, stuff like that. It's very confusing, and I don't completely understand it. But hey, it's a good catch-all sci-fi term for this. But thanks to help from Bill Foster, who is working with Shield, he's able to at least help her. Be able to be physically present, but Shields, also run by Hydra, utilizes her as a literal ghost operative in several cases. So her training for whatever the 20 years was until Shield shut down, however long she was with Shield before it shut down, has been assassination training and just a lot of pain. So it's entirely reasonable and believable that she thinks hurting other people to get what she thinks will help her is the best idea.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that they are attempting to do this, that is being attempted to do this, is to use the quantum engine, I'm just going to call it, the quantum device to get them into the quantum realm, the device that's going to get them into the quantum realm, to absorb the life force of the old Wasp, who was played by Pfeiffer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's her thought, but that is likely going to kill her. So there's a lot of questionable stuff Ghost does in this movie, but everything is justified. And though we aren't there yet, she is redeemed by the end of the film.
Yeah, I mean, kind of.
Kind of.
Less redeemed, more just stopped.
I'm allowing the use of redeemed because it's not like she's going to continue with villainy because there's a cure now. She's not going to continue to be a thorn in their side. Her motivation for being an antagonist is been removed, or at least her main motivation, but it is entirely possible something else could spur her on to continuing to be villainous, but that's how I viewed it.
I got you.
Yeah. That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I think you on point.
Yeah. But going back in the continuity order of the film. So Ghost happens to take the lab and the part that is needed that they were getting from the Sonny Birch, who's the black market dealer. And now, especially after Scott Lang did the whole Ant-Man stuff in Germany, Hope and Hank have also been on the run, so they're all in hiding, and they have to go to someone that Hank trusts as much as he can, because he doesn't trust people very much. It's Bill Foster, who's a professor at a university. They tell him, as I mentioned before, about how to track the lab, and they eventually track the lab down. When they get there, they learn Bill Foster is helping Ghost. As I mentioned before, he was helping her recover from her incident to an extent.
Yeah.
But they do need the technology that Hank has to save her life, because her body's just pulling apart, and she's going to disappear within a matter of days or weeks or something.
Yeah.
And I forget the exact order of events from there on in, but I remember there's moments where Scott has to go back because the police are showing up at his place. Hank gets the lab back for a bit. There's a moment where they actually get in touch with Janet, and who talks through Scott in some very awkward scenes.
Some amazing scenes, though.
Yeah, he acted that amazingly well. The actor Paul Rudd played that amazingly well, I gotta say.
Yes.
But in some awkward scenes, but helps them finish the formula to find her. They've got like 2 hours to locate her before the quantum signal is moved or something. And they have to do this all the while Ghost and the Sunny are trying to get the lab from them.
Yeah.
And it's a whole ridiculous hijinks. End of the day, they bring Hank goes down, gets his wife back. Janet is able to help Ghost recover. Scott doesn't get in trouble despite being an 80-foot tall Ant-Man in the harbor. Yeah. And now Hope and Scott are back together because they did break up after the whole Germany thing because he didn't tell them. And they're watching movies with his daughter in tiny form.
Until they all turn to dust.
Yes, and so they all turn to dust. Yeah, that's the main gist of the film. Also funny scenes with Truth Serum.
Oh my gosh, this is Truth Serum.
Yes, that was great. But out of all that, what are some of your favorite moments, Potter?
I love the moments with the daughter. I thought the daughter was great.
Mm-hmm.
And I also thought that a lot of characters were important other than Ant-Man.
Yes.
Which was great.
Yeah, especially Wasp, I would say.
Yeah, and yes. And the thing about so if you look at how the film progresses, if Scott didn't tell his partner that they were going to go do or where they were in the woods, he would never have known.
Yeah.
And then no one would have known the wiser. No one would have come. It all would have been fine.
Yep. It would have been fine until he decided to open his big mouth because Louise really needed him to help finish the security setup for their big thing.
Yep.
I mean, that's not. At least it's not plot is continued because of miscommunication. The problem arises from too much communication.
Yeah.
Which I mean is different for film, but it's good. It's good. It was understandable because Scott, is a goof and a mess up sometimes. A lot of the time, as he admits himself in the film.
Yep.
But he's able to pull through when he needs to pull through.
Which is good.
Yes, which is very good. Though would it certainly saved Hope and Hank a lot of headaches, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have.
It's also very interesting seeing other people's reactions to Hank. Because in the last film, we knew Hank was involved with S.H.I.E.L.D. He was friends or familiar at the very least with Tony Stark's father. He did superhero work. But besides his daughter, we didn't see him interacting with anyone he was familiar with. But in this film, we see him interacting with a lot of people he used to be, well a bunch of people that used to be familiar with. And they all basically say the same thing. He had too much ego for his own good. He was completely full of himself. He would rather fire someone than admit he was wrong.
Yep.
And he has to go on a journey, especially to save his wife, who was literally, seemingly literally the only person who could stand him.
Yep.
Which is good because it doesn't, which is nice because it helps. It shows it's not straight up good, straight up evil. There's the heroes aren't always perfect. Villains aren't always completely villainous. I mean, this is a point brought up in Civil War when there's conflicting opinions, but that's because they're conflicting opinions. But I mean, Hank Pym's still a superhero, but he's still a massive jerk.
Yeah.
Which that's
because in the comics he's a huge jerk. He's even an abusive jerk.
Yes, he's
in the comics.
Yeah, it's good they didn't go that far with it.
Yeah, which I think is why they brought up Scott Lang.
Yes. Yeah, because from my understanding, Hank Pym is typically Hank Pym's the first Ant-Man, always like we saw in the film. But eventually Scott Lang takes over at some point or another. But we start off with Scott Lang starting off with Hank Pym just being the progenitor more so than seeing him in action. And yeah, he abused his wife in the comics, from my understanding, and that is not a good thing. So he's still majorly involved in the story, but he just happens to not be the main focus, which is smart.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think it's definitely taken a different turn, which is great.
Yes, it also allows it to be a lot more lighthearted of a film, which was needed with how much serious Marvel movies there are.
Yeah, and they've really done a good job at character development, and you have, and the directors have openly said this. You have this different. You have this own path that all the characters do follow that are separate from the comics, but you also have the path that's very similar, and you can see similarities. Like, oh hey, I remember that happened in the comics.
Yes,
I remember that happened 40 years ago, and that you can really connect.
Mm-hmm.
But some things are different. Some things are separate. And I think especially going forward, they're going to change what happens in the movies versus what happens in the comics.
Yes.
Did you have anything else to bring up?
But the Stan Lee cameo was funny.
It was funny.
Yeah. We did get our Stan Lee cameo in the film. Hooray. I am concerned, from what I've been hearing about Stan Lee, how long we're going to keep getting Stan Lee cameos.
Yeah.
That's like my only thought. I'm just been hearing stuff going on online about things and concerns about Stan Lee's health and Stan Lee's caretakers as well, unfortunately. But glad to see him in this film. Yeah. What about the size measuring contest?
That was funny.
That was funny.
I don't, there are little adult jokes that Disney likes to throw in places.
Yeah.
And that's an example of one of them.
That was a wonderful example. I mean, the sizes they were talking about were not at all comparable to what actual discussions would be for the conversation they were having.
Mm-hmm.
but the content was quite clear to anyone who understands. And that's a good thing about this film, because we've been talking about about a lot of the moments, just talking about different moments that we found enjoyable, we found funny, and again, that's kind of why this film is here currently in the Marvel timeline, because after Infinity War and getting into Marvel, we need something a little more lighthearted to break up the humdrum. Well, not the humdrum, the not as upbeat.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of dark and sad going on, and will be going on next year. But I did remember you had another comment to make about Janet being in the quantum realm for 30 years.
Yeah. So what? I mean, I thought that, it's one of those things where, like, we talked about in Transformers 4, was it 5? I don't know what the most.
Yeah, it was 5.
Anyway, 5. When it was like, okay, but if you spent like 2 seconds to explain why Bumblebee can put itself back together, and like 2 seconds explaining why this and that happens, the film would be so much better. It makes so much more sense. And it's like, she was stuck there for all those years. She didn't have food. She didn't have water. What? Like, what, how did she survive?
I think it's part of the "she evolved" comment she made.
Yeah.
And how she's able to so precisely control quantum energy.
See, that's what I think, is that she survived off of the energy around her. And also, if you're, I don't know, because you can't shrink energy, from my knowledge of energy. That is very, very limited. Someone please correct me if I'm wrong, but so when you shrink, I mean, maybe your energy doesn't shrink too. So she was a very, very small being living off of all the energy that she had when she shrunk down. That was my thought, but that's probably not a true thought.
From my understanding, if a human were to shrink smaller in size, they would have to they would be expending more energy, because if smaller systems to process the foods that they are capable of storing within their bodies. From my understanding, there have been a bunch of films, YouTube series that have been talking about about shrink rays and growing stuff. And actually, I just want to bring this up because I was watching some Matt Pat game theories or film theories that he's got going on now. And the one was talking about like how in the first movie the explanation was that it's not actually like creating or dissipating mass, it's just changing the space between molecules, but how they are in the quantum realm makes no sense, because in the quantum realm it's supposed to be a representation of strings in the string theory, which is supposedly the smallest building blocks of the universe, but that's smaller than molecules, so they should not theoretically be able to shrink down that size. So the 2 seconds to try to explain it kind of screwed them over, I will say, in that instance. So that explanation is out the window. My understanding of how she survived was she absorbed the energy of the quantum realm into her to survive. I'm just impressed she didn't go mad.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. As we saw Hank almost going to do. Or she'd been mad for like 20...
Well, she probably did go mad and then eventually got bored of madness.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there's also been talk about like time doesn't flow correctly or something.
Yeah.
So it may not have been exactly 30 years. It could have been more. It could have been less. Who knows?
I got you.
Yeah. But very interesting movie, very interesting concepts to talk about.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, very enjoyable film, very good film. Not necessarily better of the Marvel films, but again, there's a lot of really good ones.
There are really good ones.
Like, this certainly stands out amongst the crowd of, like, films that have been released around the same time, I would say. But like this year has already seen Infinity War and Black Panther.
Oh, right. That did come out early this year, didn't it?
Yes.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, it's not like Marvel doesn't compete with itself, but when you're following those two films, it's hard to top them per se in terms of what they're going for. So it just went with its own path, its own spin, I would say.
Yeah.
But I think I've made all the points I wanted to make. Did you make all the points you wanted to make?
Yep. That's all the points I wanted to make. It's interesting. One more thing though is someone mentioned that Captain Marvel might revisit the quantum realm.
Ooh.
So is interesting is the question of where has Captain Marvel been? She might be in the quantum realm.
Interesting. So hold on. I need to.
And here's another thing is that I'm reading and to give credit, I'm trying to look up the article now. It was a Screen Rant article by John Orquiola, and he posted on July 7th, and he states, I'm trying to Nick Fury might have used the device to contact Brie Larson in the quantum realm, which makes it possible that she was there by choice. Yep.
That's interesting. The thing I was looking up was I was trying to remember when they told us Hank Pym as Ant-Man was in operation, and I want to say it was in the 90s, which is when Captain Marvel is supposedly taking place.
Yep.
So they would be contemporaries. That's all I'm trying to say about that. If quantum realm stuff is in fact involved.
Well, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we will. We've just gotta wait till February? March. Okay. That was February, but that was Black Panther this year, so makes sense. But yeah.
The only other thing is that two things is and this comes from a SF Gate. I don't even know what that is, by Phil Owen, Phil Hornshaw, and Ross at Lincoln, which is two questions. One, what's going to happen to Scott Lang when he's in the quantum realm, if he's that small?
Mm-hmm.
And two, everyone who dies in Infinity War and from the events of Infinity War, they get trapped in the soul realm.
Oh.
Here's the question. Janet Van Dyne, who's Michelle Pfeiffer, she's the mother of the old Wasp. She was stuck for, decades in the quantum realm. Who says that she can't get out of the soul realm?
Oh.
So it's interesting.
Huh.
Yeah. And gosh, there are all these questions that I wish I had gotten before. Does Janet's antenna in Scott's head still work? Did any of Janet's knowledge of the quantum realm stay in Scott's head? Could Ant-Man encounter a past version of Janet down there? Why does Janet know what a time vortex is? Whoa, good question. I didn't even think of that question.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
How does she know what that is? If she got in it, then she wouldn't have been able to get out of it. Did she know that Thanos was coming? Oh my goodness.
Those are some dang good questions.
Yeah.
Well, like
so I think that this Ant-Man is going to be in the quantum realm are going to be very relevant and very prevalent in Avengers 4, whatever the heck that title is.
Avengers Forever, haha.
Maybe.
I mean, I saw someone talking about that as a possibility because that's apparently some title of Marvel storyline involving a lot of time travel. And if this film is going to involve a lot of time travel, that would make a lot of sense, especially since this is like going to be the base. It seems like it's going to be the end of like the first proper iteration of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, with a lot of the OG guys getting ready to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah. Seems like it feels like we've been talking like 50-50 about the movie itself and about the Marvel universe as a whole.
Yeah.
Which, like, I don't want to knock Ant-Man and the Wasp for not like necessarily being able to allow us to have like a full-on engaging discussion of the film itself, because it's still a very good movie. Like I said, it's just like, you know, it's kind of there. It's kind of there for the fun, rather than like serious implications of, oh, what's going to happen to these characters? How is this going to affect these characters? What socio-political messages is this film talking about that we think are important? Stuff like that. Just a good old fun romp.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, I gotta head out, but this was great talking. Thanks, SoundJack.
Oh yes. Anytime that you are available, that is relevant to your interests. But I asked you last time. You don't have any. Last time you were on, you don't have any social media you like to push. So I'll just end this by saying, if for whatever reason those of you out there listening decide to watch this before seeing Ant-Man, go see Ant-Man if you got the time, because it's a good time. It's a good time. I'm not sure if any other movies currently out in theaters I really want to see, except maybe Teen Titans Go, because I've been starting to hear some good things about that. But that'll be it from us.
I shall protest.
Protest. What am I trying to say? If you want to check me out as well, you should subscribe to me on YouTube and like the video. Leave comments about what you thought about the video. If you want to follow me elsewhere, you should check me out on Twitter and Instagram at SoundJack426. And also, please check out my Patreon page if you want to support the channel. Thanks for tuning in. This is SoundJack and Potter signing off.